Now I have to admit, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Volkswagen Arteon. It's a premium and plush, pretty handsome looking executive car. But the problem is, VW have always wanted BMW and Audi money for it. And that means in the war of the business car park, it's always going to lose out on badge kudos. But Volkswagen have decided that if you can't beat them at their own game, change the game. It is a really handsome car to look at, don't you think? And yeah, sure, Volkswagen are pushing the boundaries as to what, technically speaking, is a shooting brake. But that sloping roofline and really sculpted rear end give it such distinctive looks. And when I say change the game earlier, that's really what this car does, because whilst the Arteon Fastback may struggle against things like the A5 and the BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe, none of those brands have an answer for this body style, making this something of a unique proposition. It's in a class of one. Now the whole updated range of Arteons continue to merge the headlights with a wide chromed grille for a really distinctive look. It's a car of sharp creases and even sharper proportions, and I'm willing to bet if you took the Volkswagen badges off of this, people would presume it to be something a lot more upmarket. This shooting brake wears a particularly smart suit thanks to being in R-line trim, meaning you get sportier bodywork and these really nice 19-inch alloy wheels. Being particularly photogenic and providing the practicality of an estate car is the MO of any shooting brake. The interior is just as well resolved as the exterior, promoting a really premium and executive feel. Sure, there are some recognisable traits from its sister car, the Volkswagen Passat, but the overall material quality and design influence throughout really elevate this space. Touches such as the mood lighting that has 30 different interchangeable colours, and the standard 10.3-inch customisable driver's display really make this feel like a modern and slick environment to spend time in. All R-line models get sportier, more bolstered seats, but this one has the optional carbon effect finish to them. In this car, they're both heated and massaging and are perfect for the long haul. Infotainment's taken care of by a 9.2-inch touchscreen, and various knobs and dials have been replaced by new touch-sensitive buttons. Now, whilst these look great in their piano black finish, they're not quite as tactile to use on the move. R-Line cars are also treated to this large glass panoramic roof, which helps brighten the cabin on darker days. The rear quarters are generous, to say the least. There is a limo-like legroom in here, and headroom is better than that of its fastback counterpart. The only negative being that the middle passenger has to straddle a sizable transmission hump. A cavernous 565-litre boot is offered, which is far larger than many of this car's perceived rivals. However, it's only a few litres larger than the regular Arteon. However, fold those rear seats down and 1,632 litres is at your disposal. Now, the old saying goes that variety is the spice of life, and that's certainly true when it comes to the Arteon Shooting Brake's powertrains. There's a strong range of diesel engines to pick from, a few good petrol options, there's a plug-in hybrid, and soon there will be a 316 brake horsepower R variant. This particular car is one of the 2-litre petrol engines. There's a higher brake horsepower model with all-wheel drive, or there is this 187 brake horsepower model with front-wheel drive. Now, while a long-legged diesel engine might be the more natural choice for a large executive car such as this, the petrol engine under the bonnet of this Arteon is actually pretty good. 260 Newton meters of torque provides plenty of mechanical muscle, and being turbocharged, it all comes relatively low in the rev range, and it pulls strongly throughout with minimal turbo lag. It's a really nice drivetrain, and it's very refined, it's quiet, it's sort of buttery smooth once it gets going, and it's paired with this 7-speed automatic transmission that's also pretty silky. Performance is plenty strong enough, in fact so much so I'd argue that maybe the 1.5 litre petrol might be the better option, certainly considering that it has lower CO2 emissions if you're a business user. Volkswagen claims that this car will return 35.6 mpg and emits 179 grams per kilometre of CO2. While this specific Arteon Shooting Brake is not an all-wheel drive model, it does provide plenty of reassuring grip through the bends. Sure, there's a bit more body roll than some rivals, but once things settle down, there's a really nice, predictable and planted feel to the way the chassis goes about its business. Sadly, due to a lack of steering feel and general feedback from the car, it's far from an involving drive, but it certainly feels like a competent one. The ride in general is actually pretty good. It has this nice floaty feel as it skirts its way down the road and irons out the creases in the tarmac quite nicely. And that's even without optioning the adaptive suspension. I would say the slightly sportier nature of this R-Line car and its 19-inch alloy wheels perhaps don't help whenever you go over road imperfections like speed humps. They do tend to send a bit of a shudder through the cabin. But generally speaking, it's really pleasant. And especially when you're covering longer distances and you get out of the countryside and onto the motorway, it's just a lovely thing to settle down and let the miles tick on by. These seats provide loads of really cosseting support for whenever you're in the car for hours on end, and the sort of tranquil environment that it promotes just allows you to relax a little. There's plenty of technology in the cabin as well. I've mentioned this 9.2-inch touchscreen display. That's really good, very ergonomic. It might not be the absolute most bang-up-to-date infotainment system you find like in something such as Golf, but actually remains a really commendable effort. Though I will say it's pretty stingy that R-Line cars don't get a rear view camera. You get parking sensors all around, which is great, but in a car of this size with a rear windscreen that small, and for this price, come on Volkswagen, it is pretty stingy that there's not a rear reversing camera on there when cars half the price can offer one as standard. This car also comes with a pretty advanced cruise control. Now, like most other cruise controls, it will maintain its distance to the car ahead and maintain a steady speed. What it will also do is adapt its speed based upon changes in speed limit, which is particularly handy if you enter an average speed limit zone, something that unsuspectingly trips up drivers all of the time. So it could save you a few points on your licence. But it'll also do other intelligent things like slow you down for approaching roundabouts and junctions, and has the ability to stop and start the car again in stop-start traffic. However, there's another piece of technology in this car that is well worth optioning. This system implements a series of features that can do something quite remarkable. So let's say you've activated the cruise control, you're on the motorway. The car detects that there's no inputs from you for quite a while. So it will start doing things like tugging at your seatbelt or gently nibbling at the brakes to rock the car to try and get your attention. Now, if there's no response from the driver after doing this several times, the car will begin to make its way to the hard shoulder, indicating, changing lane and slowing down before stopping and putting the hazard lights on. Now, if there's still no response from the driver at this point, the car will call the emergency services. Now, that is a remarkable and life-saving series of technical achievements that car can apply. Let's say you've had a heart attack or a stroke at the wheel. That could literally save your life. Sadly, the Volkswagen Arteon Shooting Brake doesn't come cheap, as it starts at £34,765. And whilst it's a thoroughly lovely car and comes packed with equipment, there will be those people who pick other rivals based upon the badge that it wears. That said, I think Volkswagen have boxed pretty clever with this car, because none of its rivals can offer a silhouette as distinctive as that. Head to YesAuto.com for the latest car news and reviews, and don't forget to check us out on social media. We're in all the usual places such as Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Simply search for YesAuto.